Up, everybody? How you guys doing? Happy Sunday. My name is Koo Rage, and today on Digging Deeper, we're going to talk about the fentanyl epidemic that we've been experiencing in our communities. We're going to start with a quick YouTube video. Check it out, and talk to you guys soon. Or perhaps we're not ready. Okay, well, let's keep talking for a few minutes then. I know we've been experiencing an alarming amount of fentanyl overdoses. A number of counterfeit prescription pills has kind of flooded our communities. So we're going to start with a quick video, and then Rocky and I will start our community conversations. Wow. Powerful.
It's powerful. Yeah. Peace, everybody. Rakesh Pata. Thank you guys for being here. I see there's a few people watching. Let us know if you're watching. Please leave a comment in the comment section. Maybe click that share button. We're hoping to create a really open conversation that we can build on in our community right now. Like Koo said at the beginning of the program, it's just such an urgent need that we start getting the word out and having these conversations. We figured this would be a good platform for that. So as we said on Thursday, we're just kind of coming on here to continue this conversation. We want this to be an ongoing kind of exchange in a way. We want to exchange information with you guys, hear about stories, make sure that we make this as real as we can. And, you know, hopefully our goal is to hit areas that aren't being hit already and to identify ways that as a community we can support. Again, we're not the experts. We don't come on here every week, you know, trying to act like the know-it-alls or that we have all the right information always, but we're here to really talk, you know, and exchange information and hear about like stories that are working, things that we do want to share, and then also really talk about the harder things to talk about. Sometimes it's hard to get support. Sometimes it's hard to get resources and services and things like that. But today is really a platform for that. I see Alex Lab is with us today. Thank you, Alex, for tuning in. You know, it's bittersweet. You know, I love seeing our community. I love seeing us come around real important issues. But, you know, it's sad that we come to see each other again when we've had another loss or, you know, when these things come up. but it's important that we do. And I appreciate everybody for joining, for stepping up.
Absolutely, Rocky. It's important that we continue having conversations. Conversations that can empower us as a community, can give us insight. We can share ideas, resources, and we try to talk about the things that are uncomfortable for people to talk about. And today's topic is very uncomfortable because it has been, affecting the youth in our community. This last few weeks, especially, we've experienced a number of overdoses. We've lost some people, and it's important for us to honor those losses by educating everyone else and discussing these topics in a way that can be open-minded and beneficial.
Absolutely. So thank you again for everybody joining us. I know there's more people watching. Please, if you're comfortable, share that you're watching with us so we know who's here. We're just giving it a second so that we have more of an audience as we get started. Because like I said, really, our goal is to make this a community conversation that we can kind of open up. So much so that I'll just say this early on, if anybody would like to join us on this broadcast today, we will put the link in the comments as an option. If you feel like you have an important message, have a story to share, or you're just inspired to kind of come on and brainstorm with us, we'd love to have you. Yeah, I see our family on board. We got Raza. Good to see you, fam. Natalie.
Good to see you, Raza.
She's not here in the house with me this time, so it's good to see her tuning in as well. She's got Malcolm.
Hi, Natalie. Hi, Malcolm. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it, Alex. It's always been our goal, just to kind of bring some real life stories to these situations, or to be able to open up these kind of discussions, since we can't be in person all the time anymore, and we're not able to kind of be as active with some of the youth we're really close with. We just thought it's important to send beams out every way we can to people, and especially realizing that some of these platforms like Facebook are geared more towards our adult audience and some of our young adult audience. Yeah. So we're going to be thinking about those things and kind of open up conversations on all different platforms so that we can be reaching different audiences. And hopefully we can talk more about that and what that looks like, and maybe brainstorm some ways that, young people can get involved, and ways that we can get the messaging out that is received well, received from the heart. I think it's important to come on here and say, I say it in my post, and I think it's obvious, of course, but, we don't come on here as any authority. We don't come on here, we come on here as community members, as peers, myself and Ku as recovering addicts, as people that have been in the trenches for a while, working with young people. And we just want to come up with solutions, and we want to continue to send the ripples outwards. We want to hear from people too, what's working and what's not. So,
absolutely. We want to share information, share information and get everybody's input and ideas.
So let's open this up, because I know I can talk, and I don't want to beat a dead horse or anything like that. And I know this is tough topic matter, and I'm usually full of energy, enthusiasm. I'm just trying to kind of temper that for the day, and just really bring the reality of the situation to the forefront of this conversation, because we got into it, and we get to sharing our own stories or our own thoughts and experiences, and sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. I'm talking about myself and others that I see as well, but the most important thing is that we slow down for a minute and remember that we're talking about real people. These are our brothers, these are our sisters, these are our mothers, our nephews, our kids. You know what I mean? Like, we know this, but it's really important that we ground ourselves in that at the beginning of some of these talks, so that we're remembering why we're here, remember what's important, and we can lift up their names in positive ways. And never to demonize an addict, or never to, remember somebody in a certain state or a place in their life, but to really honor them and their whole person, and to sell it, to especially honor them by doing this work and by sharing some of their stories in a responsible and respectful way.
Maybe we should start with just a quick moment of silence for the individuals and their families who we've lost, the families that have been impacted by overdoses, even those that were able to be saved with naloxone different types of things. So why don't we just take a few minutes to have a moment of silence and think about um, those topics in love and light, you know? All right.
It's
Thank you guys for that.
yeah, it's tough, man. Like I tried to, you know, we rush and we move around to get these things broadcasted or whatever, but more importantly, we constantly have to ground ourselves in why we're here. You know what I mean? And talking to Courage earlier, it really hit me again, you know, just that like I'm on not autopilot, but I'm constantly just grinding and moving to the next goal so often, you know, that sometimes like when these things come up, I'm almost numb, you know what I mean? And it's almost like a protective shell that I put on myself sometimes because it's so hard, you know, and because we deal with this and it continues to happen, or these things continue to come up, you know, and especially with all the other stuff happening in the world that so many are, you know, at odds with in their own lives and with each other, you know, it's like it's easy to get lost in so many different issues and so much controversy, but like we can't have controversy around things like this, you know, at least in the areas of like how we reach out, or that we remember these are human beings that we're talking about always, whether we're talking about the addict, whether we're talking about the person selling drugs, which is honestly often the same person. Doesn't matter what color you
Mhm.
are, it doesn't matter what the newspapers report or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's so important to mention that like I've seen people that because of their addiction turn to the streets and selling drugs from every different background. You know what I mean? And we need to be honest about that when we're talking about the dealers, even because yes, they're responsible for a death, and that's its own set of circumstances and trauma, and the law will handle it in its own way. You know what I mean? But as advocates and people that are stepping up in the community, and people like me and Koo who want to do outreach to specifically people that are struggling or that might not be ready even, you know what I mean? Like we want to
Yeah.
make sure that we break some of these barriers and that we're able to have these conversations so that when, if and when they are ready, they know there's people still out here that care. They know how to reach us. They know the resources are out here. Um, you know, again, I can get on my soapbox, but another thing we talk about so often is with addiction, it's a pinhole moment. It's a stars aligning moment when somebody is ready, when the resources are available, when life sets fire under something in some way that it just all comes to a head. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times these are the moments that the stars align for us, and we have an opportunity, a slim, just a moment of opportunity to get somebody out of the mind state of just feeding their addiction, you know, and we have to honor that. And I think that like that's part of the reason I'm more comfortable coming on here and having these conversations, because honestly before I was just pissed. You know, I was pissed
Yeah,
that
man.
we could get so far and get to that point, and then there were not resources or services out there for them. That maybe it was advertised, but you had to get into criminal trouble before you even got considered for a bed or something like that. And that had to stop. That was going on for too long. And so if I would have gotten on here before, I'd probably be speaking very frustratedly. But right now, I'm speaking with a lot of hope, even though we're in the height of a new epidemic. Not even new, but in the height of an epidemic. You
Yeah,
know,
man.
it's
It's crazy. It's crazy how quickly things change, right? Like we're all at a very low point because of the last year, all the social unjust and the deaths from COVID and the isolation that everybody's felt, you know. So everybody's at a point where we're trying to bounce back, and then when something comes along and affects our community and takes away our children, our mothers and our fathers, you know, it hurts, and it makes me angry. It makes Rocky angry, you know. And so we have to find ways to be positive, and the only way that I know how is to try to talk about it, share information, get everybody else's input.
yeah,
But this is something that's really affecting us now, you know.
absolutely. And to continue that thought, you know, just I really feel it's important to announce that service. It's not like we're in this golden time or that we're already there or anything like that, you know. But we're in a moment right now in history when services are meeting more people where they're at, in my opinion. Um, groups like Ku works for, he's a counselor with Granite Wellness, doing such amazing work to kind of spearhead in our Tri-County area, just getting harm reduction efforts out there. And forgive me, don't let me use harm reduction wrong, because I know it's more of a philosophy than an effort, but I consider things like Narcan distribution without judgment or without needing to get in trouble to get help kind of thing. I consider those things harm reduction, because instead of trying to talk like we're preventing something from happening, we're being real and recognizing that it is happening already, and we're trying to do something about it and at least reduce the harm. If I can save a life now, maybe I can reach them later. You know what I mean? Maybe, there's a chance still. And that's what today is really about. And also, I really think it's important to big up Granite Wellness, because more people should know, if you don't know already, that they're doing some free accessible services for counseling and for groups and things. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ku. I'll say it the best I understood it, But
Yeah.
they're doing self referrals and parent referrals, which has been a big barrier for a lot of us in the past, myself included, for youth that I've
Yeah, man,
advocated for.
absolutely. We got a couple of different programs going right now where if you need resources, www.granitewellness.org. Like Rocky was saying, I work there. We have a number of different programs. I'm an adolescent drug and alcohol counselor, so I mainly work with adolescents. But there are ways. You don't have to go to jail or juvenile hall and be referred anymore. You can refer yourself. You can be referred by your school, by your parents, and we do have a number of programs that are grant based, so that won't cost members anything. And so it's important to highlight the work that's being done at Granite Wellness and at other places in our community, but especially when there are services available for free.
It's so important to share. And like I said, it's one of those stars aligning that needs to happen. And I can't promise that services are always going to be available, or that um, what it'll look like tomorrow. But the more that we as a community speak up and share that this is what we need and this is what helps, and then help kind of be a bridge, that's what we've been for the community. We're calling on everybody to recognize where we can be a bridge. Whether you're reaching a group of people that does drugs, or whether you're talking to youth on a regular basis, or whether I was just talking to Rec the other day about restaurant work. You know what I mean? Like, enough people come through there, wherever there's a bar, there's a good chance of somebody overdoing something at the same time. You know what I mean? And either way, if more of us were aware of where to get Narcan, or we had it on us already, those kind of things, it would make a big difference, and it would feel like an added security for one major emergency that could happen at any time, anywhere, really. You know. Um, yeah, there was a comment on here that I definitely want to take a moment to answer as well, or at least maybe ask the audience to share some ideas as well. So Shannon, thank you for sharing with us, and I know you joined our last broadcast as well. I'm really glad you're with us. She asked, how can we as teachers discuss the important topics with our students in a way that they will hear it? I want to reach my students in a positive and supportive way. Wow. I'm gonna leave that up. Actually, that's a beautiful question, and I think that's like what we hope to get to with these conversations. That's one of our greatest goals, is that we can talk about the reality of that. Because a lot of times we go into spaces as Hip Hop Congress, or we're happy to come and empower and to bring fun to kids anywhere. You know what I mean? Bring hip hop and culture to kids anywhere, right? But like, a lot of times, we're asking ourselves the same question of, but how are they going to hear it if we're actually coming with a message? If we're talking about something that's been played out and played through, like substance prevention and like some of the outreach to young people, they're already aware of it. They're already in tune with that, and they know how to tune it out. You know what I mean? They have their logic as well. And quite frankly, for the longest time, we were sharing misinformation, in my opinion, if not disinformation, about certain gateway things and things that, like, while those things may have context to certain situations, I think sometimes we try to give things a defining order. And addiction is such a variable, and every personality is such a variable. I think a lot of times we don't address, or we try to answer things for everybody with one answer. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah, man.
another thing we want to open up today is there's many different approaches and answers, and you're only going to reach certain people. I go into juvenile hall every week, or virtually now, but we go into juvenile hall every week, and of course, we have had some of the best workshops, and that's one of the greatest things I get to do. But like, I have to recognize sometimes when a kid's still in their ish, when they're still kind of putting their walls up or whatever, or maybe sometimes groups don't always go over as we expect. I have to recognize that there's always at least one kid that got something they needed from that experience. Every different personality or person we bring in, it's like they're going to reach a different kid a different way. They're going to reach it just like us. We're humans, we're going to reach people differently in that way. And that's why we try to open it up. But in the same way, we're talking about substance prevention, harm reduction, addiction, and just what we can do. I'd like to be open on this program to like all approaches. I don't want
I
to
think most
limit us.
importantly, it's
You
just
know,
talking to your students or your children, your friends, your children's friends. I mean, I think just talking to them, asking them questions. Sometimes as counselors or teachers, we feel like it's our job to impart or pass along knowledge to them. Maybe listening to what they have to say, or how are they feeling, what are they experiencing, because most importantly we have to give them a voice. A lot of times for me, I'll go into group sessions with clients or whatever, and I'll do it in a way that I may not even say the word addiction or say the word drugs or any of that kind of stuff, and just work on letting them speak. I think in these kind of situations, we need to educate, but I think that one of the things that gets lost a lot of times is what we can learn from kids, from students. Honest, honest conversations. Um, yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Koo, for saying that. And not to get off track for myself, because I had a build on answer to that too. But I was just really happy to see that Natalie was watching along, and her answers before, during, and after, as you were talking, Koo, reflected what you were saying. Having honest
Yeah.
conversations, listening, really listening,
Listening. Yeah.
really turning it around and realizing we're not the experts on young youth culture. We're not. I'm even connected pretty closely, but I'm nowhere near the expert like our daughter is, or like somebody else is. You know what I mean? And the more that we remember that, and we allow them to be the resource and resourceful, and to come up with those thoughts on their own, then we're coming up with solutions together, like Natalie says down here as well. Like that. I think that's one of the keys, is like talking to them about it, but mostly opening up the conversation. And I can constantly learn from some of the things I share too, because like I get excited and I get wound up about certain areas, or want to like make sure that certain things are shared, you know. And I think that's important and has its value, but also, like everyone said here, just being able to step back, listen, or find ways to open it up for, facilitating their conversation, allowing them to share about what's affecting them, what they're seeing. And not Here's the other thing I'll say too with young people is trying to steer clear from certain, if depending on the conversation you're having, there's different conversations, but possibly trying to steer clear of like things that put them in a position where they're telling on somebody, or they have to be able to talk to you. You know what I mean? I think that sometimes there's a lot of barriers, and then you have to have that trust. Of course, you have to share and protect, but to really get into conversations like we've been able to for quite some years now with some of these young adults and young people, young minds, has been through giving them the floor, opening up an idea, and then sending it around the room. And what we find a lot of the times is, they're incredibly knowledgeable already. I knew about Percocets going around because of kids I work with, not because we're getting that
Yeah.
information, and it's been coming down for a little bit now. But I was hearing about it prior to that through our youth, and there's something to be said about that. But the youth aren't going to share that openly with us unless they feel like it's safe to, unless they feel it's more like we're building together or trying to come up with solutions, in my opinion or experience. So great question, Shannon. Great answers. I know Alex is listening along too. Would love to hear your thoughts too, just as a young person who's lived on different sides, like many of us, and you've also experienced a lot of loss, my friend, and we have together. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you get something from this. But also, you're one of the experts I'm talking about, brother. Like the young people that are out there that see how things go, that see where there's a difference between people in their addiction and people being predators. To be honest, you know what I mean?
Seriously.
And like in certain ways, we need to figure out the difference and be able to protect our communities from people that are purposely putting harmful drugs out. And I'm not even saying like we need to the traditional routes. I'm simply saying like if we don't have these conversations in a very real way, then we're doing a disservice, and um but again, I think on my heart today, one of the things is like I saw a video recently, and that's why I'm constantly circling back to like all approaches are valuable and they reach certain people, right? Because there was a PSA recently that I really in a lot of ways liked, but then I also recognize like it's easy to misconstrue certain things or to limit the information to where it can be harmful, and I wouldn't want people thinking that it's one group of people or just because somebody's in a gang that they're terrorist because of these drugs or something like that. No, it's more prevalent than that. Like this is some of the information I feel like needs to get out first. When Ku told me that reports are coming back that almost 9 out of 10 pills that are being confiscated are laced with fentanyl. I mean, we all need to take a step back and think about that. You know what I mean? That means that not just some of the pills, it's not just Russian roulette. You know what I mean? That means that like it's a constant odds stacked against you, Russian roulette. And a lot of people, addiction is so strong. You know what I mean? Like they're walking into these flames knowingly, and we have to have those conversations too because I think to reach anybody and with to assume that like one form of messaging or PSA is going to reach everybody is foolish. And I'm personally very connected and want to reach the hearts of those that are out there selling some of these things. And you know what I mean? The conflict that raises inside, because addiction doesn't quit. Addiction doesn't let you choose when you feed it or not necessarily when it's in the darkest points. But like I want to be able to talk about like um what's going to reach the person that's actually out there in the streets contributing to this, what's going to speak to the person, because honestly I don't believe that most of us want to lose friends or people, and I don't believe that most of the people that even that get caught for selling these drugs are going into it with that thought. You know what I mean? And I think that's important to talk about when we talk about like solutions, because it's easy to be like, we need to target the enemy. But I mean, let's get real. The enemies are way up there. They're not even the ones getting arrested or in the streets, So like, we need to really talk about it and do multiple approaches, in my opinion. We need to be doing the Narcan
Yeah, man.
awareness and
I think that's
distribution and talking to the kids
well said.
as counselors, as adults, as friends, as but they need the different angles, because we need to close the net as tight as we can, in my opinion. you know so
Yeah, I think
let me see.
go
Sorry,
ahead.
Ku. I was just pulling up Shannon's, but please feel free to respond first.
So
um
I think that we should try to start at the basics. If you go ahead and share this and then I'll kind of go into a couple things.
cool, cool. So Shannon says, I so appreciate social groups for youth that support a healthy lifestyle and provide safe place for youth to share. There is so much that youth don't want to discuss with their parents, no matter how supportive we try to be. Amen. Yes, yes. that's that's the beautiful and scary thing at the same time, is because like as a community organizer, I feel that on different levels. You know what I mean? Like I do feel like we're so impactful with a lot of the youth we come in contact with and that we build relationships with, but it can be so hard with your own kids. It can be so hard with those that you're closest to in your own family, or you know what I mean? Like the situations that are actually the closest, sometimes we have the least influence over, or like Shannon said, they don't want to hear it from us. So that's why, I think that's why we always come back around to like, it takes a village, and we recognize that as an organization, as individuals. And I recognize it when I see teachers like yourself and others in our community that step up and that we're just trying to find a way to reach and to help. And I think together we can come up with more solutions, and we continue to close the gaps, at least where they are. There's no way we can battle addiction with the expectation to like eradicate it. There's no way we can go all the way up the chain sometimes, whether we're talking about pharmaceuticals or cartels. Like, it's insane. You know what I mean? So like, what can we do? We're here on the ground. We're here with loved ones who are experiencing loss, who are strung out on drugs themselves, who are, you know what I mean? So like, how do we come together as a community? And I do think I want to pass it off to Ku, because I know that you have some great resources to share today, and then we can kind of talk more about solutions and things that we can come around today, instead of just having a conversation. Let's come up with some actions, or things that we leave motivated to kind of put out in the world.
Thanks, Rock. I think we should start with the basics real quick. Why don't we, I'll explain a little bit about what fentanyl is, kind of how it affects our brains, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about what we're seeing and what we're running into. So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. So synthetic meaning it's man-made. These aren't grown on trees. So it's a man-made opioid pain medication that was, created and used in situations where people had extreme levels of pain, cancer patients, during surgery, stuff like that. And so it's synthetic, and it's up to 50 times more powerful than heroin, and 100 times more powerful than morphine. So let's go back to that. 50 times stronger than heroin, and 100 times stronger than morphine. That's extremely powerful. As little as 2 grains of salt worth of fentanyl can kill you. So it's important for us to understand that. Basically, what fentanyl does, I wrote a couple notes. Opioid that can inhibit pain signals between multiple pathways of the brain and the spinal cord. And that's why it was initially prescribed for like major pain relief. It also causes our brain to produce extra dopamine, creating a sensation of extreme and intense relaxation and euphoria. Essentially, fentanyl hijacks your body's built-in system of endorphins by binding to our opioid receptors, much like endorphins do, but at a much, much stronger level. And it activates these receptors, and it suppresses the brain's ability to detect CO2 in our bodies. So basically, when you ingest this and you put it in your body, it gives you this extreme level of relaxation, gives you an extreme euphoria, because your body is dumping large amounts of dopamine into your system. And what essentially takes your life is your breathing. One of the things that I think is really important is when we think about an overdose, a lot of people think of someone with a needle in their arm and they're having a seizure and they're foaming at the mouth and all these crazy things. But in reality, with fentanyl, it basically looks like you're sleeping. You'll hear a lot of snoring, and a lot of people think, oh, I thought he was asleep. But no, their body is not reading the CO2 levels, and it's very, very scary. And I can only imagine a very horrible way to go. At the very beginning, we talked a little bit about Narcan. We showed a little video. This is naloxone. It's called Narcan, and it can save someone's life. It is saving people's lives. Rocky and I and Natalie and Granite Wellness and everybody, we've been trying to flood the community with these, because it'll save your life, and it's important for us to recognize that, especially when we get into situations where people don't know what they're taking. like Rocky said earlier, basically since 2017, 80% of all opioid overdoses in the United States contain fentanyl. So 8 out of 10 pills that they're finding and the police are confiscating are fentanyl. You know, they're counterfeit. People are buying these pill presses online, and they're creating, you know, some popular street pills that people are taking and that people rap about, and all of that. Xanax and these Perk 30s, and they're creating these pills that look like Xanax and look like Perk 30s, but in reality they're fentanyl. They're putting small amounts of fentanyl in, thinking that people would just get extra high and become like extra addicted. But what they don't understand is, like I said, as little as 2 grains of salt worth of fentanyl can be fatal. And you know, it's one thing for someone to think that they're purchasing or buying one drug, and it's the complete opposite, and it's deadly. Mac Miller, Prince, a number of celebrities that have died recently, fentanyl related, you know. And so it's important for us to understand kind of what we're dealing with. You know, fentanyl is a word that not a lot of people had known about until recently. A lot of people ask me, is fentanyl a new drug? No, fentanyl's been around for a very long time. And it's just in the last few years that we're having so many people in our communities overdosing and losing their life. And it's fentanyl that's taking that. And now it's gotten into our backyards. It's affecting the kids in our communities. So it's important that we all can understand exactly what we're seeing and what are the things that we can do to try and help, to try and add to the toolbox that we give our children every day when they go to school, and do what we can to try to make an impact that'll save someone's life. Narcan is something that we're giving out. We're on the streets talking to people, offering this. And I think a little later in our stream, we can go over how you use Narcan to save someone's life. Do we go into the next question, Rock, or you want me just to keep going?
No, that was fantastic, Koo. Thank you for making. I was actually got off screen for a second to look up some statistics, and then you ended up sharing some of that as well. Because one thing is there's a lot of information because this isn't a new problem, but like you said, it's if you look at charts reflecting the last 4 years, what's happened in the last couple years is unbelievable, you know, and it's like overdoses have skyrocketed, but when you actually look at the charts, you see that a lot of things have actually gone down, but it's fentanyl that's literally just skyrocketed, you know, in overdoses, illicit street drugs, and pills. So I think it's most important that we get this, you know, that information to the young people. Go ahead.
It like you were saying about fentanyl deaths, so it's surpassed car accidents.
Yeah.
It's surpassed homicides with handguns. So it's like if you take the homicides and you take the car accidents and even the COVID death in children, and it's still not what we're dealing with fentanyl and opioid overdose in general. But like I said, in 80% of those deaths, it's fentanyl related.
Absolutely. And that's another thing I'm about to look up right now, because I don't want to give out any misinformation, but I was looking up, you know, harm reduction and efforts in the communities to hand out Narcan and just what else is being done. And I was just noticing certain states, like they're so much further than us, both in their outreach and, you know, harm reduction efforts, but more alarmingly, you know what I mean? There's some places where the numbers have grown from like 13 overdoses a year to 267 overdoses just like this last year. You know what I mean? And those numbers, we can't even like put logic to it entirely yet, because, you know, we're dealing with it as it comes. That just proves what a serious situation it is. And I guess the reason I wanted to circle that into the conversation was just because like we've been experiencing it, and some things for a while here, but like who said, it's moving at such a fast pace, and it's starting to increase at such a fast rate that it feels like this could become a hotbed if we don't do something. That it feels like it can be one of those places where like it grows so out of control. And I don't want to alarm people, or maybe I do, you know what I mean? But that's one of the things we're coming on here with the urgency for, is to kind of express, yes, this has been ongoing. Yes, you've heard us say this. Yes, you've heard some of this information, or maybe you already know, but it's never been so dire or pressing. If you're in Auburn, Placer County, listening to this, parents, teachers, friends, whatever, we're all connected through this. This is one of the most intersectional, issues right now in our community, and meaning we need to come together and we need to look at it from different angles, in my opinion. And that's part of what this is. Hopefully, we're part of the puzzle. You know what I mean? And we're able to kind of maybe inspire and get the word out to people that don't have it. Maybe we're able to creatively approach where to put Narcan, because it's important that we have these distribution things. But again, trust is important, or identifying, knowing your community and being able to identify where, the greatest needs or the greatest advocates are. Those kind of things I think are going to be really instrumental in us getting it in people's hands faster. We also have to get our county on board, more on board. I think they're on board, but we have to get them on board to where it's prioritized to put the money that's needed into Narcan, into distribution and awareness, into test strips, into whatever is showing results and saving lives. There's a reason why every officer with the APD carries Narcan, or they say they do. There's a reason, and I hope I think if I'm not mistaken, it was a law. I don't know if it was more local or if it was everywhere, but that officers carry Narcan now.
There's no doubt in my mind that they do that.
Yeah,
there's no doubt, because it's like it's like a police officer going to work without his gun, right? I mean, that's part of his required equipment. Well, I guarantee you, and especially with the people that I know and the different police and like probation officers and correctional officers and stuff, and they know how important it is. They know that it saves lives. I think our first responders have probably been experiencing this a lot longer with everything. It's just, we're just now starting to really feel it in our community. We're starting to feel it with our friends, with people that we work with children that we know. And so that's kind of why we've been trying to press the point and give it out. I actually had someone get upset at me at one point and say, "Why are you trying to give this to my child?" And I had to explain to them what it was and why I would give it to their child. By me handing a box of this to you, I am not in any way, shape, or form encouraging you to use drugs at all. Like Rocky mentioned, I am a drug and alcohol counselor. I don't want you to use drugs. I want you to do everything. I want to do everything in my power to keep you from using drugs. But in reality, knowing that I've struggled with addiction in the past, as well as Rocky, I know what it's like to be addicted to something. And the thing about addiction that a lot of people don't understand is that it's colorblind. It doesn't matter if you're skinny, if you're white, if you're black, if you're a Muslim or Christian. None of that matters. Gay or straight, Giants fan, Dodgers fan, doesn't matter. Everybody. Addiction does not discriminate. It doesn't. And it doesn't matter what or who you are, you're going to be affected the exact same way when it comes to addiction. People used to think that only bad people got addicted. No, addiction is a disease. It can be passed on in our DNA. It can be affected by our environment. It can be affected by so many different things. So if I hand this to your child, you have to understand two things: that I'm doing it because I'm trying to prepare them and save their lives or save the lives of their friends. I'm trying to give them a weapon to fight back, and it's not the type of weapon that I want to use. I don't like using weapons in general, but this will save someone's life. It is saving people's lives every day. I hear about it. This is what I do. I talk to people about drugs. I work with children around these issues. That's what I do for a living. you know, and so I'm talking to your kids and to your kids' friends and to you know, a number of different people in the community because I want to make a difference. I want to change you know, the way that we look at addiction, but in general, I want to save someone's life, you know. This
Absolutely.
isn't something that I'm giving out encouraging people to use. I'm giving this out because I know some people are going to use regardless.
Well,
Regardless.
I just want to jump in too, Koo. Those don't just come with a hand. Like, it's not just us passing them off to kids like candy or trick or treating, and you know, it's like these come with a conversation. They come with an opportunity to share or exchange if they're open to it, or if that's, you know, if it's received that way. But you know, we come without judgment, and we just really want them to um, be able to see it differently, because we can't just tell them don't. We just can't tell them. You know, when I talk to young people, a lot of them feel powerless. You know, they want to help, but they're not going to go about it the way that, you know, they're told to, maybe. um, but they're struggling. You know, I mean, imagine being one of these young people watching the others in your life, you know, bright, shining, beautiful spirits gone the next day. You know, it's heartbreaking. It it needs to be addressed, you know. And even if it's just talking with the young people, even if it's just that, you know, that's the opportunity to get something they're carrying with them out. And you never know who's going to be the champions of tomorrow, the leaders of today. You know, it's like often it's the young people, and our crew is great, but our kids have always been seen as so amazing, but really they were just given the platform to share their experiences, to share their stories, to grow empowered and connected to their community. And that just showed, you know. But that's any of these young people. That's the kids we see in juvenile hall. That's the kids in a writing class. It's the kids we can't reach. You know what I mean? Like, in a lot of ways, it's all of them. Um, there was a couple of things mentioned in the comments, and I want to give some time for that. And I also want
Okay.
to follow up with what you were saying, Koo, because I thought it was so important as well. And I know as one of your questions that we brainstormed earlier. So I think it's good to pose to the audience and just see what they think. You know, if you don't mind, I'm going to put that up. And
Yeah.
if I could phrase it better, please let me know. It's fine. I just threw it up. But how do you feel about your teens or your kids having access to Narcan?
Perfect.
Please feel free to comment. As you're commenting, I'm going to pull up a couple more of the things that have been said, and maybe me and Koot can do our best to, you know, answer some questions. Um, so they were really grateful for the background, Koo. That was really well done. I think we should do a PSA, maybe, of that same information. So there's so much information out there too. Please research. You know, I was gonna pull up this phone video, but we had trouble with the technical side, the format or whatever. But then I realized there's so much information out
Yeah.
there, good videos put together already, well produced. I try to remove myself from some of the more sensationalized stuff, but even that has a place, right? But like what we showed today, I think was a very good piece, and I want to be able to put out more pieces like that, maybe relevant to our own community as we move forward. And your guys' input in that will be invaluable. You know, what kind of fact sheets or printouts or flyers or memes would you like to see? What messages need to be out there that you want your kids to have access to? We're brainstorming a little further down the road too, of really, you know, involving young people and having them lead a couple campaigns that are true to who they are and how they want to send it out. You know, but they care about their friends. They care about the fentanyl that's going around and how deadly it is. You know, and they just want to find a way to have a voice too, where they're not, you know, boxed into a certain category or shunned by their own friends who they're trying to help. You know what I mean? They're not a threat. They're just trying to figure out the same thing we're trying to figure out, but from the ground. You know. Um, so there was
You
also a
know,
couple questions, Kood, about how is Narcan administered?
oh, okay.
How does one
I
go
see that.
about getting a training on Narcan? And we can come back to that. I just want to let you know what the questions were. If you had something to say
Cool.
first, please.
No, I mean we can get. I want this conversation to be something that we all have. It's funny. Someone just texted me and they're like, "You look pissed," and they wanted me to address that. So I apologize if I look pissed or angry, but I am. I'm pissed. This is devastating. This is something that I deal with every day of my life. This isn't something that we just talk about once a month. This is something that I'm in the trenches. Rocky's in the trenches. A number of us are in the trenches fighting, fighting for the lives of our community. You know, and I know that that may sound dramatic to you guys, but it's the absolute truth. Addiction kills people, and when super drugs come along, and they come along in a way that we're experiencing right now, this is a war for lives, for the lives of your kids, your friends, and your family. So I am pissed, and I apologize if I come across in some kind of negative way, but this has been,
yeah. I'm busy, but I'm emotional, and it comes in waves, and I control what I can. And maybe I just picked up like your thoughts, Koo, but I didn't, I'm speaking for myself. But like, it's hard when it's in waves. And generally, like if you ask people, they're always asking me why I'm smiling. It's even sometimes like a nervous reaction where it's my natural tendency to smile or to flash a smile when I see somebody. It's a whole nother conversation with masks, especially, right? But like my natural demeanor, even when I'm dealing with a hard time or things, is to try to bring light or to bring, bring a positive personality to it. And honestly, like when sitting down thinking about this, it's very conscious. Yes, I'm solemn because we're hurting and we have loss, but I'm also aware that it's not appropriate. You know what I mean? Like for me to just be smiling and trying to like, yes, and yes, I feel that way too. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things I'm enthusiastic about or that I can get excited and just go off about. But like we're here today to talk about overdoses. We've lost people very recently that, um, have been involved in our lives in different ways for a number of years. Kids that like we had great conversations with, build sessions with, but they were still part of the streets. They were still drawn the direction that they were drawn. And it's one of the hardest parts of doing this kind of work, or putting our hearts out of there like this. But it's also, again, it's the most fulfilling and important, rewarding work that we get to do, because for every person that comes back and said you helped at that moment, I needed it. You were just that person to listen, or you were there, and I remember that even if I wasn't ready then. Those things are all like life changing. Like I wasn't ready until I was in my mid 20s, to be able to start changing my life and seeing things differently. And a lot of people that I was using with and running with, like, carried on and continued. And a wave of us didn't as well. And I'm very grateful for those of us that can step aside. But, it's important that I always humble myself. I'm no better than the drug addict or the drug dealer or the person out there on the streets that we're talking about. And I'm never speaking from a place of above. You know what I mean? And that's why we're received the way we are. And that's why we're able to maneuver in our community a little differently. And we want to utilize that in a true way, to reach both young people and adults, be able to like have these tough conversations. Maybe one of these days we'll speak, like I said earlier, speak to the heart of somebody that's actively so far in their addiction that they're dealing, and that they're looking past the fact that most of these drugs have fentanyl in them, and it only takes one dose to lose life. Um, we need to reach those pinhole moments and reach the people that are out there in these different ways, and provide resources for the families that are hurting, for the kids that are hurting, that aren't even involved but are hurting. And then so many kids live their own lives. And with respect and acknowledging that, like, how do we reach the real them? How do we reach the them that's around their friends too? Um, because a lot of times young people are so good, they know the answers. They know the answers that like we want to hear, or that'll get us off their back, or that'll make them feel like they already know this, right? But like we have to find a way to get further in those conversations and reach a little past that. And me and Koo are happy to be a part of that. And people reach out, we'll support in any way we can. I'm sure as we're learning this, I haven't done it myself with the Narcan yet, but we're going to be pros by the end. And like I'm happy to do some PSAs if you want it virtual. Come on a screen virtually for any of your schooling, any of your classes or anything like that. Because it was asked, how do we implement? We're also willing to record some doctors or some professionals in our community and share some of that, or
Yeah.
share some of the links that we're watching and things that are easy to share as well. But yeah, we're happy to help in any way. And if also, Ku, just so I'm giving the right information, does Granite Wellness have any trainings for Narcan coming up?
So that's a great question. I honestly am not positive when the next Narcan presentation is with Granite Wellness, but they're all over the place. You can find them videos online. You can go to just about any site that has educational stuff. It's not like you need a PhD to be able to administer Narcan. I think it might be good if we really quickly I saw Lois asking how you go about using Narcan. So why don't we do that real quick? So this is a box of Narcan. What Narcan basically does, it reverses an overdose, right? Inside the box comes 2 of these little nasal sprays. Okay, so obviously you remove it from the packaging and you pull the cap off and you stick this inside the nostril and you push in the plunger halfway in one side, and then you remove it and you put it in the other side. You go the other amount, and it doesn't take long. So if you don't start noticing something within 10 to 15 seconds, use the other one. 2 of them come in a box. It may take 2, 3, even 4, depending on how much of the opioid you have in your system. But again, you remove it from the packaging, remove the cap, stick it in one nostril, push the plunger in halfway, put it in the other side, same thing, halfway, and within 10 to 15 seconds, if it hasn't started working, you can use it again. Obviously, you want to call 911 right away and get people on the way that can take the victim to the hospital. But in the meantime, this can save your life. It's 4 milligram 2-pack, and this is something that you can, like we mentioned earlier, you can buy them at pharmacies without prescriptions, and you can reach out to Granite Wellness Centers, and we're giving these away to kind of help as well. So hopefully that answers the question. And I appreciate Lois and everybody, tuning in and checking this out and having this discussion. It's very, very important. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people in our communities right now, a lot of parents that are probably terrified, and you should be. This is a terrifying situation. You should be scared, and you should stop and take time to spend some time with your children to talk, to tell them what you're afraid of, and ask them how they're feeling if they're experiencing this. I know a lot of people that I talk to, it's on social media. People are selling drugs on social media. These drugs are real easy to get a hold of nowadays. So if you don't have this conversation with your children, and I don't get a chance to, then they're either going to hear it from someone else and the information could be completely wrong, or they're not going to know. Knowledge is power. We have to educate each other. We have to constantly work to increase the knowledge so that we can be aware of what's happening. If you live in a cave and you don't get to hear about what's going on, then that's one thing. But you should be able to share resources to discuss this stuff. It's very important. So I encourage every parent out there to take a couple hours and sit down with your children and ask them questions and talk to them, not to get them in trouble, but to get them informed, to give them knowledge, because it could save their lives and it could save the lives of their friends.
Yeah, seriously, if you're listening from our area, it's as easy as have you heard about the recent overdose? I hear it's affecting a lot of people. You might be surprised how close some of these young people are to your kids. And I'm glad Ku mentioned that about social media too, because I feel like there's so many headlines and hysteria, and it's easy to mix things up. You know what I mean? As far as to just get this idea that it's Snapchat that's the problem, or that you know, the gang members that are the problem, or you know what I mean. But like, you know, it's so much deeper. um I just feel like, sorry, I don't mean to lose my thoughts, but it's such a sensitive topic. I go so many different directions, you know. um but I do, let's see. So I did want, I
Take
think
another
I was answering a question
question.
in my head at the same time, because it's important, you know, that it was asked as far as the Narcan goes. Um, if someone got their hands on it, is there any dangers? Like, is there a danger to having Narcan? And that's a
Great.
great
So
question. And to my
great question.
understanding, it was explained in a couple of videos that no. But please, Ku, you're closer proximity to
Yeah,
Granite Wellness and the
we
information. So
actually, I shot a video this week with Gabe, the physician's assistant at my work, but unfortunately we had some technical difficulties and we couldn't upload it to show you. But you cannot overdose on Narcan. You know, this goes and basically takes all of that opioid out of your brain, you know, and it immediately puts you in your body into withdrawal from it, you know. But no, you could use this. You could use 10 of these on someone, and it's not going to harm them. This isn't going to hurt them. And that's it's important to know. That was a great question. That was a
really
great
great
question.
question. Yeah. And I think the video on the doctor that you recorded, he said that as well, very specifically, and it made me think that like one Narcan in a site isn't enough, you know, because that's also why they put two in the box, right? There's two
Mm-hmm.
per box, because it's not guaranteed to work the first time. And what's crazy is I hear that fentanyl specifically sometimes takes more than one, you know, because it's so strong depending on the dosage. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it said in the video at the beginning that we played as well that it's only for opiates as well. So don't think that it will help with any other type of overdose, but it'll help with any opiate related overdoses, and it's just immediately suppresses it um, from uh, continuing to affect the brain. So there were a couple more questions. Let's see. Or thank you for the demonstration, Ku. I think it's really helpful to see it, because as simple as it is, and I laughed when I first was like, we got to do this big PSA and training, and I realized it's not all that. It's as simple as opening a box and reading the instructions. But I think it's so important that we alleviate any like concerns or questions ahead of time, because like you don't have but a split second in a moment, you know, and um, also because so we could feel stronger about putting this out in the world. That question about whether you feel comfortable with your kid having it, the real question was, do you feel comfortable with your kid having all these conversations about it? Because it really is just a tool that can't cause any harm, but it becomes so important, you know, like if you're in proximity or you know somebody. I've had talks with kids recently that like there's people that they want to know have Narcan. It's either a parent that's close to the kids that are using the most, or it's the actual kids that they know are around it, you know? And then some kids, you know, are growing up with addiction in their house, and that's scary, you know? And to even have that as an option, to know that you might be able to save your parent's life or someone in your house's life, you know, that's important too. And that's one of those tough conversations to have, because people are scared to have that conversation, to say too much, right? But like really, when you think about it, it's not just the kids we're saving. It's the kids like that we're giving greater assurance and resource, and you know, putting it in their hands, giving them some power back,
Yeah.
because it's a powerless situation. You know, whether you're growing up around it or whether you're surrounded by it at school or wherever. You know what I mean? Like, um, and that's what I was going to say earlier too, is like we get caught on headlines, or I sometimes over analyze some of these headlines, like Snapchat's the cause, I think I saw, of our overdose rates, or I saw something. And headlines are going to do what headlines do, right? But like I think it's important that we break down each of these conversations, and not all today, but as we go on with these talks, you know. It's just that like I don't know, these I don't know. I'm sorry. I knew going onto this program I was kind of scattered today. Just I'm really feeling in my emotions, and just I feel like I've been numbing myself off to like 3 really big losses recently. So I'm just gonna be honest with everybody and let you know I'm out of sorts a little bit today, as far as like
Me
having
too.
multiple things on my mind. But you know that moment of silence that we took earlier, I was reflecting on more than that young overdose that we recently experienced that was so close, but also 2 other people that were, you know, close to our hearts as well. So please forgive me if I jump all over the place today a little bit. But jumping back, the whole Snapchat talk and what I was saying there is like, well, that's not the issue to target, or we don't want to just like sum it up. It's like when I talk to kids, there's not a we can think that it's only the kids that are connected or hanging at the I don't want to demonize a space, so I won't say a spot, but you know what I mean, like hanging at a certain location or around certain people that are connected to it. But I want to tell parents right now that like if you have a kid on any of these social media sites, especially the ones parents aren't on, like they're getting marketed to daily for drugs. You know, just really
Daily.
take a second to think about that.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm very hard pressed to think that there's a high schooler and maybe even a middle schooler that doesn't know how much a Percocet costs or what's going around right now in their immediate vicinities or circles, you know? And it's not always like the kids at their own school or whatever, but like just trust that, like, even if you grew up in the same town, eventually some kids are using and some kids aren't, right? And the kids that aren't using aren't unaffected. You know, I'm sure they wish they could do or know more, but like the the ones that I talk to, you know, I think that was an epiphany for me as a parent. You know, was just that like no matter whether you're trying to find out about it or whether you're in those circles, you are being it's in your face. It's you know, as a young person, it is not just peer pressure. It is like the peer pressure on crack. You know, it's the social media version of it. So like really,
Really?
I just wanted to take a second to say that because like that's what we're up against, and it's not like we're gonna change or eradicate it, but how do we, like Ku said, how do we provide more tools and knowledge and things that empower them, give them their power back, you know, and um, you know, let more of these young people know they're not alone. You know, I the more I talk
Absolutely,
to
man.
young
I'd
people,
like
the
to
more I
touch on
realize. Yeah, go ahead, please.
on just kind of what we were just saying there. So, well, for those of you who don't know, we're in different places, so it's kind of a little bit of a delay sometimes. So, sorry if it seems like we're talking over each other. It's really hard to get synced. But anyway, with social media and with, like I had the parent that was like, "Why are you giving this to my child?" Right? He doesn't do drugs. She doesn't do drugs. But that's the thing. Not everybody does, right? Not everybody is using, but guess what? They could be at a place, at school, or at a restaurant or a place that they hang out, and someone could be overdosing, and this could save their lives. So I don't give these to your children because they're drug addicts. I don't give these to your children for any other reason but because I want to help save their lives, save their friends' lives. Um, with like Rocky said, with social media, it's ridiculous. How much they're seeing these substances and how they're hearing about it in the media and the music, where they're rapping about perks and about Xanny bars and all these things. So kids are impressionable. They're young. They're still trying to figure out their way, who they are and what's going on. And when people are constantly seeing something in their face, it really quickly becomes normalized to them. If they're seeing it on music videos and little Peep OD'd and this happened, and so it's something that they're hearing a narrative, but they're hearing a narrative that's different from the narrative that I'm going to give them, that Rocky's going to give them, that you're going to give them. We're going to tell them, this is what could happen. These are the facts. We're not going to try to glorify it like, oh, you'll be cool if you take Xanax. But that's the way that the media addresses it. That's the way the media, with music, that's what they're hearing. They're constantly being fed with all of this. That's why it's important that we talk about it. And we talk about it in a way that isn't to judge them or to demonize them or get them in trouble. I don't want you, they a lot of them say stitches get stitches and stuff like that. I'm not asking you to snitch on anybody. I'm simply trying to prepare you for what you may deal with, what you may see from a friend. It's not just this idea of this homeless junkie deviant, you know? These are our friends and our family and people that we care about. And when we get into the prescription pill aspect, for me, for years, I always thought, heroin and crack were drugs, and prescription pills that were given to us by a doctor were safe, and that's not the case. They're safe if given in the right amount and taken the right way with different things. It's not an end all be all. But when I think about, especially when I first got into this, I had this idea of medication as being safe. A doctor gave it to me. So it's easy for someone to rationalize, oh, I'm stressed out, I'm going to take part of this Xanax that I got from my buddy off the street. But what we're running into is that Xanax isn't the Xanax you get from the pharmacy. It's a counterfeit pill that has no Xanax in it. It's just fentanyl and what you call cut, like Tylenol, things like that. And so, I know kids that don't smoke weed, don't drink alcohol, but they would be more inclined to take part of a pill when they have a headache or some anxiety, and they wouldn't, rationalize in their brain that it's a drug. But these pills aren't ones you're getting from the pharmacy. They're not the ones the doctors are prescribing. They're ones that people are making to try to not only trick you into thinking it's a Xanax or a Perk 30 or a Norco, but they're trying to give it to you in a way, not because they thought it would kill you. They're giving it to you. They want you to get more hooked on it. They want you to they want you to crave it and want to pay more for it and all those things.
They want to multiply their profits as well. I mean,
exactly.
Math.
People are broke. This pandemic has affected our economy. People don't have money like they're used to. People are lost their jobs. So I'm not saying that it's okay to do. It's not. But I'm just trying to get everybody to think about it a little bit differently. It's not like it's this evil drug lord that's murdered people that's selling these necessarily. It could be people who have just found that that's the only way that they can feed their families, which I disagree with. But just saying, we got to think about this from all different walks of life, all different types of situations and experiences. That way we can understand it to the fullest of our ability,
That was really great. I get so many great ideas from your talks too. Let's take a minute, maybe ask another question. I didn't see a lot of people respond to that last one, but maybe we continue to build on that. If anyone missed the last question, it was basically just how do you feel about your kids receiving Narcan and information about how to use it? Because we found that some parents are concerned, and I think that's fair. I think we acknowledge that it's a fair concern. But I think my next question is kind of what other tools or resources would you like to see? What would help you either talk to your own kids, your own class, those kind of things that you don't have access to yet? And I'll just kind of segue too. We're leading into certain campaigns where we're going to be creating more content, creating more things that will be able to go out on social media, like on the things that young people are using too. We're going to have things targeted and fact sheets and stuff for Facebook and for Instagram, but we're also going to have stuff kind of targeting hopefully Snapchat and TikTok and things like that, where we meet them where they're at and we just start getting more information out there. We ask the kids, what do we think people would respond to, or what information do you think is the most shocking or important? And then we put them into little memes and we share them. Some things are simple, but it's not like we're thinking we're going to save the world or on some like false crusade, but we recognize that everything helps and we got to meet them where they're at and do what we can that isn't being done. I think a lot of the messaging out there, it targets the kids that want to hear it. It targets the adults. It targets, it targets certain groups, but like, what are we doing to reach the kids that are not trying to hear it, the ones that are using themselves and, you know, putting up their fronts or putting up their walls, you know, and hopefully we can come together as community, especially with the young people, to talk about that, you know.
Absolutely, man. I think that's a great point. What's the next question we want?
So I didn't put the question on the thing, but I did put a question out to the audience. Maybe I'll write it in just a second.
Cool.
But the question was
No,
just
another
what other
comment, man.
tools. Oh, sorry. Yeah, what other tools or resources or things would you like to see as a parent or teacher that would help you have these talks with your kid or kids? Um, so Shannon says it depends on the kid, but since it can't harm them, I would feel safe. Thank you. So for the first question with Narcan, as soon as her question was answered, she feels safer, you know, and I think that's super important to acknowledge. And while we're thinking about little memes and simple things that seem like sometimes like, you know, obvious to some of us talking, you know, it's like those things aren't always
Yeah.
obvious, and they're not seen enough. And the more that we put these messages out in the world, I think it's good. So something I think now, an idea that came from this, Shannon, is putting together like a little thing that can be shared that expresses that there's no harm from Narcan. So when you're being asked if you want to learn about it, there's absolutely no harmful results. You don't have to worry about your kids getting their hands on something dangerous. You know,
I
that's
mean, of
great.
course, you never want to misuse anything like that. So I wouldn't say that using it without a need or any of that kind of stuff. What I'm simply saying is it's safe. They're not going to overdose from it at all, you know.
They're
But
basically
I
gonna like
really
if they're
appreciate Shannon what she's adding. That's great.
yeah. From what I understand, basically if they're on any opiates, it'll stop the effect.
Yes,
You know,
it will.
as simple as that. Uh, let's see. My only concern is the pressure it may put on the child to save someone else's life. Oh, wow. Some kids can do
Let
well
me
with
counter
that.
with this.
Maybe for others it's too much. That's a powerful thought. Yeah, please.
Let me counter with this. Um, let's look at it. Let's play devil's advocate and look at it. Imagine if your child experiences that with someone else and doesn't have a way to help or has to experience them dying in front of them. You know, we could, you know, we should talk about all the different ways that we can look at it, you know? So I agree. And that's something that I do when I'm talking with kids. I'm trying to kind of let them know, you know, of course you're not a EMT, you know, you're not a doctor. We're not asking you to do anything that is just, you know, crazy that only doctors can do. What we're doing is we're sharing information like this product can help get them from overdosing and dying to the hospital so that they can be saved. And there's no guarantee that it's going to be work. That's going to work. Even if you use multiple of them, it may not work. There's, you know, some of the cases that we're experiencing, it's like 3 or 4 Narcan were used and that didn't help them. It depends on the amount. It depends on a lot of different things. So I think that it's important to look at it from all different angles, and that's, you know, that's what Rocky and I really appreciate about having this platform and having these conversations, so that we can look at it from so many different angles, in so many different ways. You know.
Yeah, and come up with ideas and answers together. You know, I'd like to build on that as well. I think it was such a valid point. It took me back, you know, but I do think that there's an advantage as well, and I would love to see more schools, especially high schools. I realize as you get younger, it's harder to have certain conversations, but we need to stop fooling ourselves that, you know, especially locally, that middle school isn't where we start getting introduced to certain things, you know, and heavily. But that's besides the point, you know. But kind of to along your question, what I think the advantage is that like you're in a group setting, so they can all receive it how they're going to receive it. You don't necessarily need to have that deep, in-depth one-on-one, you know, any type of intervention or anything like that. It's more like you're presenting important information, opening up the possibility for young people to share what they're feeling about it, and then offering it to them. You know, it's not that they have to take it. It's not that they're a bad person if they don't feel like they're the one or they have a need or they're this. A, B, or C, right? But like they now have that information, they know where they can access it. And then maybe you even turn it back like, okay, if we don't want, if individuals, then who do you think? Because sometimes, like we said, the kids are the greatest resource. Who are the people that are going to be most effective to have it on them? You know, me and Ku have been kind of putting together a running list. It ranges from, counselors and first responders to tattoo artists. You know what I mean? It ranges from people in the recovery community to teachers and educators and, just so many different areas. But I think that one good response would just be to like know that you're going to present something to them and hopefully in a way um, that they receive, not as like a requirement or like anybody's going to look down on them or anything, but more like you're reaching out of care, um, and you care about what their thoughts are about it, and if there's somebody that would like to have that assurance, or if they know somebody that should have it, it allows that opportunity to talk. And you never know when a young person is just waiting for, they're asking questions to find out if you're somebody they can talk to. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
You know
we
what,
do
that
it all. Being real, we all do it, but kids especially, like they're really smart and intuitive with that. They're
that
gonna
made me
ask. Go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry, Rock. I'm having a little bit of my Wi-Fi seems to be acting kind of weird. So
Gotcha.
what I
Gotcha.
wanted to add though, is something that we don't always think about, right? Someone asked me the other day, they're like, "Ku, what if I'm at a party and I see someone overdosing, right? And I don't know for sure what's going on, but I don't want to call 911 because I don't want to get in trouble." Well, there's something called the Good Samaritan Act, okay? And it's different from so many different angles legally and in different states and all of that. But what it basically says is that if you call the police when someone's overdosing, or if you walked in or saw something happen or a car accident or whatever, that they're going to understand that you were in a situation that may have been, you didn't want to put yourself out there because you were afraid you were going to get in some kind of trouble. I think that with law enforcement and first responders, they just want to get there in time so that they can do their job, I want to tell you guys that if you do see something happening, even if it's your friend, or if you saw him doing drugs, or if you have drugs on you, like whatever it is, if you see someone overdosing and potentially dying, you need to pick up the phone and call 911 and get help on the way. You don't have to give them your name, and you don't have to have a major conversation with the police about it, but obviously it could save someone's life. I think that that's something that people are concerned about. At least the people that I talk to, they say, I don't want to snitch, or they say, well, I don't want to get in trouble, or, well, of course, if it's different if you're a person that's selling drugs and doing all these things. But if you're a friend at a party and one of your friends starts to overdose, I'm confident that if you pick up the phone and call 911 and ask for help, that you're not going to get in any kind of trouble for it. They just want to do what they can to save someone's life. And so the Good Samaritan Act is something that you guys can look up and find more information about. I'm not saying that there's no legal repercussions. I'm just telling you that from the police officers and probation officers that I talk to, it's like they want to do more to save a person's life, And so that's something that I've been asked a few times this week. Don't think of it as snitching, man. Saving someone's life is saving someone's life. It's important to think about. It's important to kind of wrestle around in your brain. So some of the other things that we can do is, you've heard Rocky and me mention harm reduction, right? So I'm going to look up the definition. Harm reduction is a set of practical strategies and ideas aimed at reducing negative consequences associated with drug use. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about harm reduction, Rock. What are some other things that we can do in that aspect of harm reduction besides Narcan? And the big one for me and Rocky is fentanyl test strips. So fentanyl test strips are a way for people to test their drugs to find out if they have fentanyl in them. And so that's something that we're giving out with Narcan. We're not encouraging people to do drugs. Again, we're recognizing the fact that some people are going to do drugs, and it's best to try to give them tools to be safer about it so that we don't lose them either. So like Narcan, fentanyl test strips can be given out. And basically what you would do is you would add water to the drug. So say you had a pill, you would crush up the whole pill, not only part of it, not just part of it, the whole thing, add a little bit of water, mix it real good. You dip the test in and hold it for 10 seconds. And if it comes up with a couple lines or whatever, it'll show that it has fentanyl in it. And that's one way to kind of be a little bit safer about what's going on and what you're doing, you know. The reason why I say the whole pill is something else that's important to know. When you take a counterfeit fentanyl pill, we run into what you call the chocolate chip cookie effect, right? So Rocky, say you take a bite off of a chocolate chip cookie, right? One bite, you could get 3 or 4 chocolate chips, right? Another bite, there could be no chocolate chips. Well, that's how it is with these pills. Part of the pill could have all the fentanyl and another part have none of it. So that's why I say use the entire pill. If you use half of it, you're gambling even more, you know? Again, we are not promoting people using substances, using drugs. We are not in any way, shape, or form. But we understand and recognize that some people are going to use, whether we tell them, you know, not to or not. You know, we have to keep them as safe and with as many resources as possible to help them get from that point to getting help.
And I think that's clear what you were just saying, but we'll repeat ourselves so that anyone tuning in kind of has context and knows where we're coming from, you know, because it's not your average broadcast about fentanyl. This is a community report. This is us talking as friends that care, that are connected with the young people that are dying, that are losing friends. That's why we do these broadcasts. It's really taken this tone. We were putting together our whole podcast and community sessions ideas, and that's still going on. But this kind of took precedence because it's you know, it's sad to say, but like when we lose somebody, it just brings it all right back up, and everything is, you know, right there again. Like Kuz said, we do work on these things, him especially, throughout the entire year, and we work with the young people that this affects and that we can reach, you know. But yeah, there's so much to break down, and yeah. I keep losing my thoughts today. I just have so much that I want to say, and I know we're talking about harm reduction, and there was something I wanted to say in there at a point without interrupting. But I think I misuse the term harm reduction sometimes, and I don't. Again, language is its own thing. I'm going to use it how I use it, and I just say this for the audience watching that what we consider certain harm reduction efforts, some people call it that. Other people recognize that harm reduction has been a philosophy for a lot of years, to really build this understanding in people that, you know, we're not here to judge addicts. We're not here to condemn addicts. We're not even always here to assume that we can stop their use, you know, or that that's our job, but literally to reduce the harm of them using and give them tools that are going to provide for them, to show them compassion. Harm reduction isn't just for addiction, it's for mental health, it's for other things as well, but it's really a compassionate human approach that recognizes that we can't change the fact that people use, or that they have hard times, or they fall on these things, you know. And we just come from a philosophy that we can't be punitive. We can't just be punitive. We can't just be looking at it through the eyes of reaching those, or seeing some as humans and some as like a lost cause, or those kind of things. It really takes that out when we're talking about harm reduction, from what I understand. It really puts it back into the more human role of just a, you know, person to person, and one person caring and showing care for another. And then the next step of that is like, well, if we aren't ready to address stopping using, then what can we do in the process to circumvent death, to circumvent worse situations? I'm going off cam so that my daughter can walk by.
You know, absolutely, Rock. One of the things that popped into my head while you were talking about that was some of the things that I'm experiencing and I'm running into are people who are not, young kids that are just starting out and don't have addiction problems, but full blown addicts that are in their addiction right now. And they're telling me, I know I'm getting fentanyl. I don't want it, but that's all I can get my hands on. And if I don't use, I'm going to be sick. And for those of you that have never experienced opioid withdrawal, it's horrible. It's something that most full-blown drug addicts really fear. You feel like you're dying while it's happening. It's horrible. So I run into people who know that this pill is counterfeit, but they have no choice because that's all they can get their hands on. So it's important to look at both sides of it, from a young person that doesn't use drugs that may run into it at a party or on social media or at school or with friends, to someone that is a full-blown heroin addict that can't get heroin right now, and all they can get are these counter pills that are fentanyl because they've tested them with test strips that I've given them. And they know that it's fentanyl, but they're still so far into what their experience is that they're taking it anyway. I mean, think about that.
Thank you, Ku. Thank you. I was really, that's one of the things I got lost in my thoughts on, is I was trying to find a natural way to segue or bring that into the conversation. And I think that's so important for any of us that are, a little further in or more connected. We see the other side too. We have friends that are still probably, struggling or coming off of dope and recovery communities, and we connect with these people, Sorry, my computer glitched. Hopefully you guys can hear me clearly. I'll just keep talking now. But there's a lot. Addiction is powerful. I don't know. I think people just got home and got on the internet, but I apologize if my internet is glitching out on everybody. I hope you guys can still hear my words. Please cut in and let me know, if I need to dip or anything.
Yeah, no, I'm really having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's breaking up a lot. Maybe
okay.
We've been doing this for an hour and a half. Maybe we should start kind of, just in case we lose, because I don't know if you guys can even hear me right now. My Wi-Fi has gotten really strange.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I think same thing here, and I don't know if it's both of our houses or what. But I apologize for technical difficulties. Again, yes, Natalie's going to go on her hotspot. You're on mic, by the way.
Hi.
Natalie says hi.
Hi.
She just got home. So yeah, internet does become a thing when everybody's on at the same time. But I do want to finish my thought on the last thing, and then we'll try to wrap up today. And this isn't going to be a one-time conversation. Hopefully we can continue to make these shorter and more impactful, and include more people in the conversation and bring them into the conversation on screen as well. But to finish my thought on that was just like, I think that's such an important piece that Ku said. And just to reiterate, I've been in extreme addiction. We've relate in that, and there's few things that you can do to turn around a person's thought patterns while in their addiction. It's pretty much feed the addiction constantly, and there's pain involved when you're talking about opiates. There's in certain drugs, and there's fear around that, and there's so many things. But like somebody heavier in their addiction, it's not going to stop them to give them this basic information that should, we hope, with young people, when they hear that almost all the pills they're getting on the streets have fentanyl in them, that they'll at least take a step and be like, because they still have some of that, they're not all the way gone, right? But like Ku said, there's plenty of adults in these kids' circles too, who they see have already let go and accept that, and they're leading, like they're basically showing them, see, I use that fentanyl and I'm good, or they're showing them some variation of what Ku just said a second ago. And we need to be real about that, because it's kind of like a lot of the stuff when they used to demonize marijuana, when they would say like, you're going to go blind, or you're going to A, B, or C, some crazy shit, right? And kids would realize that didn't happen. Most of my peers, I don't see that happen. So how are they going to trust the things we tell them about other drugs when we're seriously serious? You know what I mean? That's a whole nother discussion packed in there. But like, just to say, we have to look at some of these things differently. And I think
So Rock, I got another question that one of my friends just asked.
okay.
Can we ask it? Someone just
Yeah, I'll
asked
just
me, how does fentanyl affect you differently from someone that doesn't use much to like a full blown drug addict it's simple. It's tolerance. So tolerance is basically the more that you do something, the more your body and your brain adjusts to it. With opioid pain medications and drugs in general, you constantly increase the tolerance. So you have to start taking more of the drug, taking it more in between times, less and less amounts, you know? So if you're someone that uses opiates and opioid drugs, then your tolerance is going to build up. So you may be able to take one of these fentanyl counterfeit pills and live. You may be able to take two of them. Like it depends. But again, for someone that doesn't use fentanyl on a daily basis, as little as 2 grains of salt worth can kill you. So that was a good question.
really good
Good question.
So I think those were great responses to the things that came up during this broadcast as well. If anybody did have any other questions or suggestions or things you'd like us to talk about in the next one, please add it to the comments. We're going to do our best to make this ongoing. I don't know how often, but we're going to turn our monthly broadcast into something more frequent, probably at least to pop on and update and talk about what we're doing, but hopefully to continue this conversation and get others involved until, you know, it feels like we're really campaigning in our community as a whole from all different sectors to like just lift up this issue and raise awareness and put things that could save lives in people's hands, you know. Real quick, a question that I had that I think I'd like to kind of touch on, or something I'd like to answer too, as far as like some of the things that Shannon shared, was that I think moving further in the conversation sometimes makes it more real as well. And this can be something you have to be sensitive to because there's some kids that have experienced trauma or there's people that have experienced certain trauma. But I do think that like talking about after it's been implemented is important too. Some of the best resources I've seen have included like some of the good things to do or to be aware of when somebody does come back to after being, you know, issued Narcan. It's like, from what I hear, it's like coming out from underwater, like you already have died, but you're like resuscitated literally, right? So thinking in those terms, it's important too that we, you know, have ideas of what we're going to do after we implement Narcan. What are some good things that are helpful to hear when you're in that state of mind? I mean, it's literally like a frantic state of mind. A few people that I've talked to that have actually gotten Narcan just described it, you know, and it's like coming back from death and you're trying to make sense of everything around you, and you may or may not be grateful to be alive. Do you know what I mean? And there's so many things that have to be considered, but as a human, as a, you know, somebody that believes in harm reduction, it's super important that we have tools in our toolbox to be able to like meet that need as it's there, because that might be that pinhole moment where we can actually talk to them, you know, and point out that this was the closest they've ever been to death or something like that, you know, but not immediately, but like how we respond and how we relate with them when they come to, I think is important. And it offers them support. If nothing less, it's human, it's humane. You know what I mean? It gives them love at a time when they're completely gone. But it's also an opportunity to reach somebody, to let them know that somebody looked out for them and was, you know, ready to care like that, put themselves out there like that. I also think it could help with some of the kids that were worried about like
what I tell people,
how to address it.
What I tell people is be loving, you know, give them a hug, tell them you're okay. You just overdosed. I just administered Narcan. The ambulance is on the way or whatever. But don't start yelling at them about their use. That's not going to help in the moment. In the moment, you need to be patient and loving and encouraging to them, because what they just went through and what they're going through in this moment is completely different, you know? So I think you save the time to lecture them for later, you know? You, as a human being, you show them love and patience and understanding, even if you don't understand, you know? Because there's a lot of different reasons why people use drugs, and it's different for everybody. It's not something that we encourage, but if you woke up from an overdose, from dying basically, and someone gave you Narcan, what would you want to hear? Would you want to hear, you're a this and that drug addict, I just saved your life? No, you'd want to hear, hey, you're okay. I'm sorry that you're going through this. The help's on its way. I'm here with you. Be supportive, be encouraging, be loving, because we're all human beings at the end of the day, you know.
But like
and
Koo said,
and
let them
we all
know
have hearts,
too.
you know?
Let them know from the very beginning that they just overdosed and that you issued them Narcan. They may or may not know what that means at first, but let them know so that can be
Yeah.
processed into their thinking, you know, because it's frantic. It's like, what happened to me? How did this happen?
Yeah.
You know, and in a frantic state, if they, a lot of times if you're
Exactly,
on drugs,
man.
you have things that you fear, you have things that you're hiding, you have things that the A, B, and C, and you're completely put off because you just overdosed. You know what I mean? So like Koo said, just think about what you would want to hear. Think about the things that are going to be helpful, help calm them down, assure them that things are going to be okay. You know, if you're one of the people like us, let them know that they can reach out, or give them a way to reach out afterwards, and just that, you know, send them off with the best energy you can, and let them remember that an angel looked out for them. You know, somebody really came through and looked out for
Yeah,
them,
man.
and hopefully that'll get passed on in some way, whether it's to themselves or to someone else. You know, because I do believe in that. You know what I mean? Like when we show that kind of humanity to people that are, you know, past that or don't believe it exists anymore, which I've been there. Um, those can be those key moments in people's lives that make them want to live again, that make them see something else again. You know, so just wanted to put that out there, and we could. I think that's a conversation we can build on too. Like, what are some good ways for us to like prepare ourselves for that? Because here's the other thing: whether somebody's yelling or scolding or trying to like insert their opinions in that moment, like Koo was talking about, it's happened. You know what I mean? Like, but that person's going through something traumatic as well. You know, just like it was mentioned, like some kids might not be ready, some adults might not be ready either. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of having to administer, and the more that we have these conversations, I've talked to people that have had to, or they've commented, or you know what I mean, and it is something serious to think about. So preparing ourselves, I think, is another thing that we can kind of look at, and you know, to put some tools in our toolbox and protect our own mental health. Um, but yeah, I think these have
Absolutely.
been
I
really
think that's
great
a great point.
conversations, Koo. I really have appreciated your very straightforward and factual approaches, and just some of the information you brought today. I think it's really important that we start there a lot of the times, and I'm quick to jump into the conversation. So I think we balance each other well, and I really appreciate that we're able to come together around this. We're constantly going to be working on this and inviting others to join. Whether you're a young person that wants to see a change, whether you want to be on camera or you don't, we can find a way to share some of your thoughts or things that you want shared, you know. But we invite you guys to come have conversations with us, to open this up further in any way you can think of, to take this information and share it with others, to send us private messages to tell us, like, what kind of fact sheets do you need? What kind of things would support you in what we're asking you to do, which is talk to more of your kids and the kids that you're connected with, more of the young adults who
Yeah.
need to be reached, you know?
I think it's a great time to talk about some resources that we can kind of share, right? So the first one, and we kind of shared it earlier, was um, I'm here as a member of the community, but I also work for a company called Granite Wellness Center. So Granite Wellness Center, or granitewellness.org is the website. There's all kinds of different resources, and you know, with counseling and therapy and just different things that we do from an educational standpoint, as well as you know, to encourage. But granitewellness.org is a great site to get more information on the services that Granite Wellness Center provide. You know, there's an office in Auburn, there's one in Grass Valley, and there's one in Roseville. So yeah, our free and confidential addiction support hotline, 530-388 0359. Another resource I would like to put up is for an NA or AA meeting near you. The phone number is 1-866-977-8382. Again, 1-866-977-3882. Oh, sorry, Rock.
Can you, it's okay. Can you do what was the first number? Was that NA?
Yeah, no, it's the same number. So 1-866.
Yeah, I have the number.
9.
So
Okay, perfect. That's the number. So that's for to find a meeting near you for Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're struggling with substance use and addiction, you can dial this number and you can find a meeting near you. Not everybody does the 12-step program thing, but it's definitely something that has helped a lot of people. So if you're looking for a place to find a meeting near you, either in person or on Zoom, that phone number. I also would like to share the California Youth Crisis line, which is for children 12 to 24 years of age, and that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 1-800-843-5200. 1-800-843-5200. Again, that's the California Youth Crisis Hotline number. For kids 12 to 24 years old, and that's a 24-hour, 7 days a week thing for the California Youth Crisis Line. So I know this is kind of a little rough probably with the internet the way it is, but those are a few resources that are out there. Also, I think talking to your physicians, asking questions about Narcan and about fentanyl, the next time you see your doctor, or let's share resources together. If there's something that either myself or Rocky can do to help and support you guys, you can instant message us on any social media site, Facebook. I'm Christian Kudo on Facebook, Auburn Hip Hop Congress, and then Instagram, at Ku Hustle Hard. Guys have questions or you need information or there's something that I can do to help support what you guys are going through, please reach out to me and let me know. I'm a busy person, but I always find time.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, you do. I salute you for that, Ku. Appreciate you, bro.
Salute you, Rock.
Pulling up just a couple more of the comments here, and thank you for those resources. If anybody needs the numbers that we shared or any other numbers that were mentioned, please just message us in the instant messages or in the comments, and we'll get those up as well. Here we have. I don't think I ever pulled this up, so I'll just share it. Shannon had said in our earlier conversation that since she's in education, her first thought is that schools and districts send out information and videos to middle and high school parents. Absolutely. And I know that Granite Wellness and Cali have put together some great things, and they're also sharing things from other places. But yeah, let's continue to compile those and get the places that don't have them. That's why I said if there's specific slides or things that would help you pull it up for your classroom in an effective way, please let us know. Or if you're looking for a lived testimony, as hard as that can be, sometimes there's both local ones and if that's too sensitive, there's so many examples around the country, and people are trying to come together around this issue like us. So you'll find a lot of great testimonial videos, PSAs, statistics, and things out there like that. But the more current information we can get out there in meme form and start reaching the places that maybe we're not targeting the best or we're not connected to, like maybe TikTok or Snapchat and things like that. Let's get some information out that way too, and involve our young people in that, and make it in a way where it's digestible to them. Something that they would want to share, not feel like they're telling on their friends or going to get ostracized for, but literally just showing their heart, showing that there's help out there. Well, thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate you being involved in the conversation, and it really helped guide the direction some of the talk went. and that you care so much to join us both on Thursday and today. I hope that you reach out if there's anything we can do to support with your class, and
Yeah.
anything that you need. Anita's with us. Hey, Anita. So thank you all for what you were doing, bringing this to the forefront. Throw up 100 as well. Absolutely. That's, that's why we're here. And as sad as it is that we're here for this, you know, we're committed. Uh, People need to know that you can't only get fentanyl on Snapchat. I hear so many people say that Snapchat should be shut down because of this. Thank you. So if I don't know when you joined, Carol, but I actually spoke to this a little earlier, and I tried not to go off on a tangent for too long, but I get really upset with headlines and sensationalism, and sometimes we try to box things into a definition or a group that's the cause of it or things like that. And I 100% agree. And there's a whole conversation that I think we're going to build on maybe the next program about Snapchat and some of that talk specifically. But I 100% agree. Everybody needs to know, parents need to know that that is happening. It's pretty much daily that young people see things being sold or what they cost or who has them and all those kind of
Yeah.
things. But like that's going to happen on any social media site. They just know that certain ones parents are on.
Absolutely.
Aside from
Yep.
that, though, it's not the
Absolutely.
cause. It's not the cause. It's a symptom. It shows how reckless and how far from caring we are. If you really think about it, I can't imagine putting that out there on
Yeah.
Facebook or phone or social media back in the day. Could you, Koo? You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
these youngsters think that like, and it's working, and they're not necessarily getting. It's not necessarily proven to be so detrimental to them. They're actually making money off of just promoting that they sell drugs daily, openly. And they have ways to where even if they only want certain people to see it, they can pick who sees it.
Yeah.
you know and I think that's important because a lot of
Yeah.
times it's not the kids you think. It's our kids that don't, not, I won't say our, I'm not trying to put anyone above or beyond or around or whatever, but like it's not just the kids that aren't using, or it's not just the kids that are using, right? The kids that aren't using are seeing
Yeah.
these things daily as well. And if it wasn't Snapchat, it would be another thing, and it's more of a symptom, I in my opinion, and I agree. um and she said
Not
she just
just
got on here a little
Snapchat.
late to the conversation. But yeah, so I rewind it back if you want to hear a little bit about that. But we only touched on it briefly. But yeah, we were saying pretty much the same thing, is like, be careful with overgeneralizations, be careful with over
Yep.
assumptions, or the way that we create hysteria in our headlines around a group or a topic. You know, this is a widespread intersectional issue that affects us all, and if it hasn't touched our lives yet, it will. And especially if we don't start moving faster to meet the needs and do what we can. And thank you very much, Carol.
Yeah,
If
man.
that wasn't mentioned today, I would probably go off on it for even longer right now, but I'm doing my best to kind of wrap this program up today. But yeah, absolutely. Uh, let's talk about it with our kids rather than just assume Snapchat is the problem or something like that, right? Carol also posted one more thing that I think is super important. I don't know how we missed it, but yes, Placer County now has 211. So if you are unsure about where to look for certain things, this is like a resource call center. I don't know
Yeah.
about documenting it or anything like that, but it's community driven. It's not law enforcement or anything like that. You're simply calling to say,
Mhm.
hey, I need mental health services, or I need to know where to reach this person to help with this. And most of the time, it might take a minute to get them on the line, but someone will answer personally, answer with compassion, and try to direct you with their best knowledge to the resources in the community, and they're very tapped in. So 211 is a great resource, at least a starting point for nearly anything as well, if you're just trying to figure out who to call about certain things. And then Carol also said people just need to be educated on that. You can get you can get it anywhere, not just on Snapchat. 100%.
Yeah.
And it really turns it back to like, listen to our kids, right? Because you'll know as much as you need to know, at least on that, just talking to the kids, right? um,
Yeah.
it's not just on Snapchat, it's not just social media. These things are platforms though, and definitely it's part of the consideration of things that we have to tackle or address to be able to address this issue fully, you know but thank you so much for saying that. And yeah, if there's any other resources that can be shared in the comments, please do. We mentioned the youth crisis line. We mentioned Granite Wellness and some of the services they're providing. We Ku shared about the NA and the AA meeting finder, and the number that you call to find the nearest meeting to you. If any of those things sound of interest to you, please reach out. Also, like you said, we're just here, looking at this issue and seeing what we can do, and we're constantly busy and available for this. You know what I mean? So if you have any questions or we can help in any way, please reach out. My name is Rocky Zapata, and you can find me anywhere online. But also Auburn Hip Hop Congress. You can find us on any social media site, but also you can reach us at auburnhiphop@gmail.com. I'll actually put that in the thing down here. But if any of you want to get in touch with us, get involved with these efforts, learn more, or even just find out about Hip Hop Congress and some of the things we offer, please reach out. And I'll end my part on this, but I will say, it's so important too, especially when we're talking about young people and young adults, the wellness side of it. I think it's important in all categories. I take that back. But I think it's super important to speak to the wellness side of it. And we and other organizations in our community work very hard to provide positive outlets, things that get them tapped into their community, things that get young people involved or give them skills or opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. Those are all things that can lead to, having a connection with the young people in the time of crisis, or just staying with the pulse of the youth, so you really know what's going on. But anyways, I think and groups like Cali, the Coalition for Auburn and Lincoln Youth, and CPY, the Coalition for Placer Youth, constantly just brainstorming and thinking of ways to reach young people through wellness events and things like that. And it's really shifted to wellness because, it intersects with mental health and addiction. But we need to have options and solutions outside of what we're telling people to stop or what we're trying to help them stop. You know what I mean? And I think that's the missing piece sometimes. And that's why we've been able to move into the roles we've been able to move into, is because, we're on the ground and providing kind of these supports and opportunities for youth. So with that, I just want to say, wellness is a super big part of it. And maybe we'll have a separate conversation again around that. But just things that we can offer or suggest to young people that are trying to get off of drugs or trying to build new circles or trying to stay focused. And, I know a lot of young people that want to do better, but it's as easy as just falling off the path or getting drawn a different way when you're bored. So let's talk about how to fill that time up with meaningful things and, make real meaningful connections. And hopefully that empowers, their lives like it has mine, to where we want to do better and we start to show up for ourselves in those ways, and that's the most we can hope, in my opinion, with a lot of these young people that we're reaching out to, because it's one thing to preach to the choir or to get kids to repeat something back to us or say they understand, but it's a whole nother thing to be somebody that they can trust or somebody that they can reach out to when the time comes, and hopefully we can build an army of us to really be here and support our community. And until things can catch up, we need to fill the gaps as individuals and community members, and push for our county and organizations to be doing the same, or, see how we can help do more. Anyways, that's my soapbox. Any closing words, Ku?
No, man, I just appreciate having the opportunity to do this with you guys. I appreciate everyone that got involved. And this is something that we need to continue. So thank you guys for spending some of your Sunday with us. I hope that this helps. I hope that you're able to have a conversation with your friends and your family and the people that are important to you, because this could just as easily be one of us or one of our loved ones. So we need to keep that in mind. Just let's keep the conversation going. For Rocky and Ku Rage, we appreciate you guys. You know how to get a hold of us if you need to. And we look forward to our next opportunity to have community conversations and dig deeper with you guys.
All right, Joe. Well, have a blessed rest of your day. Much love to everybody, especially those that are feeling the pain or struggling right now. We came on to really support that and to give time and space for that, and hopefully to make an impact in our community. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you everybody for commenting and being a part of the conversation. We hope to do this more, and that's us signing out. Thank you, Ku, for all your input today. All right, y'all. Peace. Have a blessed day.